Yeah, no, 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 no. Yeah, no, 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 no. Yeah, no, 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 no. Yeah, no, 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 no. Melanated minds with the crown restored. Asiatic truth that we cannot ignore. Honor to noble Drew Ali, we rise. Nationality reclaimed, open your eyes. Hey, hey. Love, truth, peace, freedom, justice, the spark. No more strangers walking in the dark. Research first, let the facts ignite. Real Morse talk every week, truth over hype. This is knowledge, this is heritage, this is consciousness. Welcome to Real Morse Talk with your hostess, Prime Minister Duria Bay. Hey. Yeah, no, 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 no. Yeah, no, 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 no. Shadow hour. 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 You are now tuned into Real Morse Talk. Melanated glow, crown back on the throne. Asiatic spirit, yes, we finally home. Honor noble Drew Ali, we proclaim. Nationality restored, we reclaim the name. Yeah, yeah. Love, truth, peace, let us spark that fire.
Freedom, justice,
Lifting hearts higher.
no more strangers.
We know our part.
Real Morse Talk,
Truth from the heart.
Real Morse Talk,
Truth from the heart.
Real Morse Talk.
That's right.
Yeah, na, 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 na.
Shadow hour.
Yeah, na, 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 na.
Shadow hour.
Yeah, na, 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 na.
Shadow hour.
Yeah, na, 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 na.
That's it. Rise up. Rise up. Rise up. That's it. Rise up.
This is heritage.
That's it. Rise up.
This is consciousness.
That's it. Rise up.
That's your heritage.
That's it. Rise up.
Never haven't been.
That's it. Rise up. This is heritage. This is consciousness with your hostess, Prime Minister Duria Bay.
All right, all right. Welcome to Shadow Hour, everyone. We're here on Real Morse Talk. We are streaming live, and this is going to be a great show today. I'm so glad for you all that are joining me today. First, I just when we have a busy show today because we're talking about some really important topics when it comes to health. But first, I want to rise and give praises to the All Creator, who I choose to call Allah. I choose to call our Creator by Allah, Jah sometimes, for allowing me to wake up this rising in my right frame of mind with my good common sense, my life, health, and consciousness, with the ability to stay on this road, the conscious road, the Islamic road, because sometimes it's rough and sometimes it's smooth. I'm going to give honor to each and every one of you who found time to come out today and join me on Real Morse Talk Shadow Hour because it's really, really important that we connect with one another, bind with one another, and support one another. So I'm really appreciative of your support. So shukran, shukran for that. I'm going to be talking about health today, and I'm going to be interjecting with some different information on about what we're talking about health. But it's a really big factor in the Asiatic melanated people community about health. And so I want to give a special honor today to my granddaughter, Janaya, because she asked me to do this particular segment. And she'll be 20 in June. So she's from the younger generation, I guess considered the Zen generation. And still for her, health is very important topic to talk about. And she was raised health conscious. And so one of her concerns is what people are still putting into their form at her age. And we were having that discussion when she was here visiting me during my born day celebration. And she was saying that people are still eating things like chitlins, pig feet, pork, slop, slave food, as that generation called it, food that should never enter your body. And we did have to eat that way at one time because we didn't know any better and because we were trying to survive. But when you know better, you do better. So we're going to talk about some of those topics today here on Real More Talk. So I'm going to give a special honor to her. And I want to give an honor to my mother today. And that's, I'm in all purple, my mother's favorite color, because one of her journeys to starting to be more healthy was when I talked to her about health. I'll never forget my mother when she became very, very ill, and she wasn't telling anyone what was going on with her. So we didn't know. And at the time, my mother came to visit me and she wound up living with me, staying. And she had ascites. And for people who do not know what that is, it means swelling of her abdominal area. It was really big, swollen, and everything. And so, being a medical professional and nurse, I had friends in the medical field. And one of my good associates who was a physician, I called him. He said, "Bring your mother into me," and I did. And when I brought her in, he said, pulled me to the side. He said, "Your mother is end stage liver disease." And, it kind of floored me when he said that at first. He said, we have to admit it right away. And so that's what happened. They wanted to admit my mother right away. And then, he did everything in his power. And a lot of associates that I work with, even the one that created the Levine shunt, all of them worked with me diligently to get my mother back to some sort of healthy way of being able to survive. And of course, we had to fight with the hospital because they didn't want her there. They wanted to kick her out because I guess the insurance, and I'm gonna talk about that today. My sister's facing that now, where people don't want to pay for insurance. The insurance companies do not want to pay for your health, yet even though you have insurance, it's the people who are not even medical professionals. They're not even in the medical field who sit on these boards and say yes or no to certain medications, to certain procedures. And these are things where they're controlling the health of our environment. So it's time for us to take our health back. And so I want to give a special honor to my mother because that gave me a journey to fight. I've always been a fighter, but that was the very first time I had to fight about someone being able to have the correct medical treatment. And I had to fight, write letters to the board of the hospital, etc., and wind up, of course, I won, to keep my mother there until she was well enough to leave. But if you do not have the knowledge, if you do not have the fight, if you have loved ones that are in positions medically where they're dependent on someone else, and a lot of our people depend on the medications because they don't know how to eat right. They do not know how to eat right. They do not know how to live right, and they're always, making a reason for not wanting to eat. They just want to eat the way they want to eat, and they don't care that it's affecting their health. And then when it does affect their health, then they would rather take a pill so they can continue to eat that way or live that way than try to change. And so that's some of the things we're going to be talking about today on Romo's Talk. Again, so welcome to Shadow Hour. Again, a special honor to my granddaughter, Janaya Nasir. Janaya, thank you so much for putting this in my ear, because this is one of my favorite topics. I always talk about health and nutrition. And I was like, some of the people may not want to tune in, but you know what? It's a great topic to talk about for those who do tune in. It's a great topic to talk about, because trust me, they'll learn something today in reference to this. And so I feel your pain. I feel you. I feel it. I know my oldest daughter was telling me that, she's a manager at a place, a store. I don't know if she wanted me to say which one, but anyway, she says that one of the biggest sellers at her store is pork rinds. And people come in and they automatically start explaining buying pork rinds without her asking them why they're buying them. I don't really eat pork or this or that, but I love these pork rinds or whatever. And so it's conditions, it's really a state of mind and the condition of one's mind. But I think what we do not think about is when we're eating health. Now, some of us are older, so we're not going to have children, at our ages. But some of us that are much younger may still desire to have children or have families. And this is a big issue. One of my really good associates that passed away, it's been almost 2 years now, I think, that Brother Ishmael passed. But one of the things him and I had in common was that way that we love to eat. And him and I could conversate for hours about healthy and nutrition. And I remember sometimes we would be conversating and he started get out his guitar and start playing his guitar, because that was a way for him, his mental health, to make sure that he was surviving. He would just play a couple of tunes or things that he had done. He would play those, and I would be able to hear them. And we both were able to relax from the music that he was playing. And that was part of the mental health strategies. And as I also said, I have a very, very good associate, Dr. Terry King Bay, whom I spoke about the week prior. Once he found out that people were not assisting him with the right diet, he went on an all journey, an all out journey to make sure that he got his mental health together and his physical health together. And he started getting into the healthy way of eating, and he made it an actual career out of it. And so it's really important that not only do we talk about mental health, but we talk about physical health. And part of physical health is part of healthy eating. And so, and I know some people say, oh, I don't want to be one of them people that just eat, rabbit food, as they call it, or lettuce and tomato. And, they think that the only thing you can eat is, vegetables and lettuce and tomatoes or salads. And they think that's just part of what healthy eating is. And of course, getting those nutritional vegetables in, especially those raw vegetables, if you can tolerate them. For those who are more gassy, you cannot always do the raw vegetables. But for those who can tolerate salad, sometimes it's always great to have a salad. I've never had a reason not to have a salad unless, the place I went to just wasn't a salad, or at my home if I did not have the ingredients. But it's all right. You don't have to say, oh, I'm a rabbit, but it's other foods to eat, to substitute. You do not have to become a rabbit as you consider or want to eat raw vegetables, even though you should. If you're having some health conditions, getting the berries and the fruits and the raw vegetables would be the way to go. All right. So I want to first, there's two book covers that I have here that I have. These books are available for sale on our website. The first one is The Truth About Health from the Inside Out. And this is a book that I wrote some years ago. It has all types of herbs and everything in there too for different conditions. And so it's the truth about your health inside and out. And then this is my cover for my alkaline foods. It is dedicated to my friend, Dr. Terry King Bay. And it says my alkaline recipes for healthier living. So these are all on circle7publishing.com. And I'll post that up later today. So this is what they look like if you go to the website. And it's funny, a lot of Europeans are interested in my book. When I go to where I go physical therapy or things like that, and they ask me about things and I'm talking about my diet or whatever, they ask, Do you have any information on that or books on that? And even though we're in a generation where you could probably just look it up online, the thing is recipes. They want, what does it taste good? Since you've made the recipe, since you've tasted them, what tastes good? And we know most of the time that the people from Europe, that those Palians or Albions or whatever you want to call them, probably said they're Europeans. That's what I call them. Don't really season their food, so they don't have. We have different palates. They do not have the same palate that we have, and so their foods do not taste good to me. But our foods do taste good to them, even though they would not probably season it the same way we do. And it's all in the seasoning. And so my son was telling me that I'm squinting when I'm on camera, so I'm going to make sure that I put a second pair of eyes on. So as I'm reading and giving information, that I'm able to share that with you. So again, welcome to Shadow Hour on Real Morse Talk, where research comes before opinion. So always when I come on here, it's always information that has been researched that you can research before I give an objective opinion on it. Because believe it or not, we all have opinions, all right, which are no proof of the truth until you can make it a reality. Okay. And so that's what I do with my information. All right. So tonight is a simple question, but the answer may change how you live. Are you what you eat? And some of you all can go ahead and post that in the chat when I say, are you what you eat? Because you probably have heard you are what you eat. But I'm asking you, are you what you eat? Because what do you know about it? Are you what to eat? Are you what you eat? And more importantly, are your children what you are your children too, are what they eat as well? And there's some important things that we know about that because we know that a lot of things are customary. And so when they say that heart attack, or high blood pressure, heart disease, and cancers running in Asiatic families, it's more about not heredity. It's not about so much heredity like you inherited, so your mother, your father. It's not, it's socially. It's the way that you and your household pass things down. So it becomes generationally and instead of heredity. And a lot of times they'll tell you, oh, because your great grandmother was born with it or whatever, that's why you have it. What happens is when the conditions in your body change, you pass that on to children. Those of us who are mothers or even fathers that plant the seed, they don't believe that their seed plants, but you have to believe that. You have to believe that if you plant the seed, and I was really big when I was young, and I know I wanted to have children and making sure I had a mate that did not eat the things that I didn't desire for my children to grow up with. I didn't want them to have all kinds of problems and diseases and things like that. So we make choices in life, and a lot of times we do not make the right choices, or we just don't pay attention to what we're doing before we actually plant seeds to have children grow. And a lot of times our children grow with conditions because we do not take the time to choose our mates wisely or our diets wisely. So tonight on Real Morse Talk, the question is, are you what you eat? And most importantly, are your children? This is not a conversation just about food. So I want you to know it's not just about food. This discussion is more about identity, responsibility, and the unseen impact of what we consume every single day. So it's not even just about food, it's about environment and social as well, the things about our health that we pass down. All right. And so modern science confirms that many were never taught food is just fuel. Many were never taught food is not just fuel, it is information. What you eat affects your DNA and your gene expression, your gut, your microbiomes in your gut, which controls mood, immunity, and disease in your gut. And think about it. Everything you put into your gut, everything breaks down and passes through your bloodstream. Everything. This is how we get ill with different foods that are bad for us or drugs and alcohol, things that are not good for us. It affects our bodies because your body breaks it down and then it's transmitted throughout the rest of your body, right? If it's transformed through all of your body parts. So you have transportation which causes, and we know that the blood cells, which I don't want to get too detailed, so I'm trying to keep it where I'm not speaking to you in like I'm in the hospital working or talking to, other medical professionals, I'm going to talk to you real, like really what is happening. So I'm thinking about the words I'm using because I'm so used to the medical terms. But it actually, what happens, it breaks down into the gut. The gut breaks down everything and passes it throughout the body, right? It's called by transport. And so that's what happens. And so your body gets the fuel from the foods that you eat. This is why when people eat a lot of sugar, I'll give an example, and they'll get this rush from the sugar. And then children running around, they hyper all day, jumping up and down and things like that. And then all of a sudden, if they consume too much sugar, once the sugar comes down and they do this hard crash and become drowsy because this is what's in your gut. And then you're passing it out through the rest of your body. All right, so that's one of the things that happen. And then also your energy, thinking, and emotional states are always affected by your food. As I was just saying about children, they're all happy and they jump up and down, and you can't get them to sit still until that crash comes down, the sugar rush comes down if they had a lot of sugar. And in adults too, because some adults can't go without having sugar. They got to have something sweet every single day, 3, 4 times a day. If it's some people, when you go in the grocery store, just watch. I seen a man in the grocery store the other day. He had all cakes and pies and things in his cart. And it took me back to when I was in college. I had a girlfriend of mine who, well, she had a baby. And so I guess once she got her, fiat from, the child support or whatever it was that she got it from, and she went shopping, she would fill her carts up with junk and chocolate milk. And one day I said to her, I said, is that what the children are going to eat? And, I'm not trying to get in your business, but I just want to know, are you going to put any food in there, any fruits, any vegetables? And she said, oh, yes, yes, I am. I just like to get my goodies out of the way first. And I was like, well, you look like you was on your way to the register, and she had all this junk in her. And so I'm thinking if she's eating that, then that's what her children are eating too. And they're not really eating any food. And, I guess I could have mind my own business, but I felt like that it was my business because her children would be a future generation of children. And so therefore, I said something to her about that. Okay. So, we have to think about that. If you go into the grocery store and you look in other people's cars, just by looking, you don't have to stare, but just see what they're picking out in the grocery stores, and you'll see that most people do not eat very healthy. Okay. And you hear a lot of times people say you are what you eat, you are what you eat. And that's true. The truth is just eating for yourself. You are shaping the internal environment that can be passed down. In this episode, we're going to break down the real meaning behind you are what you eat. We're going to break that down. How diet influences biology and behavior, the connection between food and generational health, not just generational wealth, but generational health. Why processed foods are reshaping outcomes in ways most people do not realize, and how to take control of your health and your legacy. Okay, I know this information is going to be challenging a lot of people's habits, thoughts, behavior patterns, and long time beliefs about what you've had. If you've had an 80-year-old grandmother, she might have said, I've been eating this way for 70 years or 60 years or whatever, and it hasn't killed me yet. And that's the key word, YET, yet. And you have to see if your grandparents, are they really healthy? Are they healthy? Are they on all kinds of medications, blood pressure medications, heart medications, medications for all types of illnesses? Because again, you are what you eat. All right. And so people do not take the time to cook food, because I'll tell you, I remember when I was younger, my mother, is just so interesting how a lot of this connects back to memory, to age. Is when I was younger, it was 5 years old, I started in the kitchen. At 5, I was helping my mother, my grandmother out, and my grandmother was really insistent that the girl in the family was in the kitchen. Sometimes she would send for me, and my mother would have to pack me up and go over there if she was making a big meal or needed to clean things or whatever. So it's just always something. And I'm talking about my mother's mother at this point right now. And so I learned to cook very early. By the time I was 7 years old, I was a pretty good cook. When I turned 9, my mother turned the kitchen over to me and told me it was my kitchen. And so I remember us going from me cooking whole foods and fresh vegetables for the popping. Like yesterday, I was popping string beans, and I was going back in the mind of being in the kitchen with my grandmother, popping off the ends of the green beans and snapping them in half, just snapping them. I was doing that yesterday. Even with my trigger finger, I was still determined to get that snap, snap, snap done, right? And so those are fresh foods, fresh produce. But when we started changing over, I never forget when my mother started buying food in a can and stuff in a box. For instance, where I used to make mashed potatoes from scratch, she started buying box mashed potatoes. And me and my mother had a really big fight about this. She wanted me to learn how to cook, and she said it was better, it makes more, it was faster in the kitchen and etc. So we went through that stage of that her spaghettios in a can. I know probably a lot of you probably grew up on that. Spaghettios in a can, or spaghetti in a can, didn't taste anything like spaghetti on the stove. But that's some of the things my mother did. Some of the things she wouldn't compromise on was rice. We still had to make our rice from scratch. And she tried gravies a couple of times in packs, but she didn't like the way they tasted. Neither did I. I could make some gravy. So we stayed with that gravy. But me and my mother really fell out about having all of these foods that she started buying that was processed foods. And I lived through that generation of coming from the fresh vegetables to the frozen or canned vegetables. For the fresh pots of spaghetti, it was easier to open up a can, throw the spaghetti O's or canned spaghetti. And it was a red and white can, Franco or somebody, whatever, made the spaghetti. It went from making baked beans on the stove to beans in a can, those type things. So my mother, she wanted to be, up with the times, I guess. And so she thought it would be better for me spending time in the kitchen is to try to process foods. The interesting thing is, years later, when her health became affected, she wanted to go back to the way she used to eat when we were much younger. And so that just goes to show you that we do know that beginning to process foods, it was the beginning of our downfall to health. I remember I purchased the book Back to Eden. And I said it was sometime in the 70s, I think 76 or something around that time. Back to Eden. I used to read that book all the time because I really wanted to eat healthy and wanted to stay healthy. And I remember in Back to Eden, it said that the generation here, and it's talking about the children, they were going to be born bigger and thicker because the flesh that they were going to be eating was going to be flesh that was injected with all types of hormones and things like that. And when the children consumed it, it would affect their growth. The girls would start developing earlier and things like that. I think genetically, even the way some of our children act, and all of this whole homosexual stage and all that has a lot to do with what they put in their bodies, what they eat. I'm believing that all of this stuff is genetic. A lot of it's genetically modified that you're eating. It's not real. And a lot of these, to produce these animals like they do, they inject them, they force breed them and all that. And we had a video where our children saw how turkeys were forced through, especially for Thanksgiving, how they shot them up with hormones, how badly they treated them in the facilities. And a lot of our children was like, I never want to have turkey again. And some people, it doesn't bother. But just how animals are even treated to produce food for people is cruel and inhuman. I mean, they're not human, so, but it's cruel punishment. And they shouldn't have to go through that. And then when you're eating that, think about the flesh you're eating as a terrified piece of flesh because that animal is terrified, the way it's killed, the way it's treated. And then you're ingesting that same food and taking in that same, everything that flesh is going through, you're taking that in. I was watching an episode of Watson where they do the scientific, and it was amazing to see that this girl who ate her mother's brains when they were stranded out in the Iceland or somewhere like that, their plane crashed, and she was taking care of her brother, wind up getting disease that manifests years later from the eating of flesh, a brain. So see, eating flesh is never a good idea. I know some of us are stuck, and I say some of us, because I don't want, but most people are stuck on eating flesh. And so that's one of the things that seems like it's the hardest to give up. It's very acidic and people seem to love it and they don't want to give it up. And I always tell people, try eating that flesh without any seasonings or anything on it and see if you still feel the same way about it until you season it. So just like people like myself who do not eat flesh, we do seasonings of our food, and you season your food because it helps the vegetables, bring out the flavor and things like that. Well, with flesh, you have to season that as well. People have to season flesh. I don't think I've ever seen anyone who ate flesh that they didn't season it, or at least if they did, they didn't enjoy it. All right, so I wanted to go down there with that. So many people have heard the phrase again, you are what you eat. Not just physical appearance, it affects your health, your energy, your thinking, and emotional state, as I said earlier. And think about your health. Anyone who stops eating flesh and start eating a more healthy diet feel better energetically. They lose weight. A lot of people lose a lot of weight when they just come off the flesh. They don't have as many headaches as they are, and then their emotional state changes because their mind is clearer to think. So they get to think clearer. It's not all clogged up. Your intestines is not all clogged up because your body is not made to break down flesh. And so this is why a lot of people have colon cancer, and they get colon cancer because of eating of the flesh or tearing of the flesh, and you put it into your body and your body cannot break it down properly. And so then your colon is affected. The very first thing they do is take you off of flesh when you have colon cancer. That's the very first thing they do is take you off the flesh because why? You can't consume it. Instead of telling you ahead of time, if I'm your physician, it would be good if you tried not to eat as much flesh or to eat flesh at all or whatever and make changes in your diet. Also, your energy level. People who eat a lot of flesh are very sluggish. Well, after they eat, they so tired they can barely think. And that's why on a lot of jobs, you'll see, I remember at the nurses station, a lot of times the people ordered like cheesesteaks for lunch, and I don't know, just some of the stuff makes my face cringe at the smell of it. But whatever they would be eating, some type of flesh substitute or hoagie, Italian hoagie, cold cuts, whatever they be eating. And then after they eat it, about 15, 20 minutes later, they're sluggish, they tired, they yawning, they don't want to move, they don't feel like doing nothing, they can't wait for the day to end. Because when your food, it takes about 20 minutes for your digestive system to start processing that food and breaking it down and getting throughout your body. And so it's making sure it's already affecting your mental health. You're already feeling more tired than you are. All right. The foods, the foods and drinks that we put into our body have a direct input on our health and well-being. Food is not just fuel, it is information. And you know how a lot of people try to go back on saying when you have a break fast, when you eat break fast, that's the very first meal of the day. So it should be a pretty healthy, nutritious meal, packed with protein, and as a lot of people, we were talking about people over in the UK or England or things like that, where they are used to having like beans for breakfast and things like that. And I remember one of the girls that came over here was laughing about grits and eggs and things like that. She had never heard of that over there, having breakfast for that. But beans are full of protein. And so that may be one of the reasons why beans is one of their main meals over there in the rising, because the breakfast that you eat can determine your day. Do you know your blood sugar, glucose, is what the very first thing you put in your mouth in the rising? So if you put water in your body, the very first thing in the rising, and then putting some proteins in your body in the rising, that's things that get to your system first. Your cells love protein, right? But they do not have to be protein from flesh. And I think that's what a lot of people make the mistake of, thinking that I have to eat the flesh for the protein. There's so much plant protein. You do not have to do that. Also, beans are full of protein. You have your kidney beans, your kidney beans, black beans, red beans, lentils. Those type beans are full of protein. So if you want a breakfast with a healthy protein, you can do a lentil burger in the rising. You don't have to have eggs and toast or whatever. You can do a lentil burger if you want to, something that's healthy to give your body to go. You can have some spinach, mushrooms, things like that, in the rising. Those are things you can have. Saute mushrooms with some spinach and a little garlic and sea salt and pepper and have that in the rice. I'm just saying there's other options of having it because that is your very first meal of the day. If you have a juice, do a beet juice with like beets and ginger in it. I was out the other day, my son and I had a wonderful drink that had beets and ginger in it. It had turmeric in it. It was full of healthy and it was so good. It was so good. So that's the kind of things we don't have to have processed orange juice and processed apple juice and things like that because all of that's still processed. If you want to make juice of your own, you can do your own oranges, your own lemons. You know, you can do these things and start trying to take something and change your life around. And I guarantee you, if you try to eat healthy for 7 days, it will change your life for 7 days. All right. Okay. Now I want to come into the scientific part of eating, which confirms that people never were taught this. What you eat affects your genes. And I was speaking about this genetically. So this is what's passed down generationally, not so much that you inherit it, but genetically because you have altered your geneticists, you've altered your genes. And so now in order to get those genes back to a normal state, you have to start somewhere. So you have to start with getting yourself healthy. And I know if you're older, you're probably saying, oh, that doesn't bother me. I'm a eat what I want. I'm not having no more children, and that's fine. But if you're a young mother, you decide to have more children, or if you have no children, this is for our brothers and sisters, then start thinking about if you're preparing to have a family, that you want to start altering your genetics. You want to do that now so that your genes are not affected. Because what happens to your body is we have something called free radicals. And what these are is they recruit healthy cells. So the free radicals, they go around and consume healthy cells. That's what they do, like a Pac-Man. They go around and consume healthy cells. And so they don't recruit unhealthy cells because they already have those. And so now your healthy cells become unhealthy cells. And this is where we get tumors and cancers and mass and things like that because the body is fighting it off. And so it's going to find a way to try to bring it out or protect you. And what happens is when your body's trying to protect you, a lot of times it's damaging you. It's like your body is turning on you because it's trying to protect you from these foreign objects that's getting in. So we're wonderfully art thou made. We're made wonderfully. And so our bodies are going to keep protecting us. Okay. So I want to talk about nutrients influence gene behavior. Genes turn on and off based on your diet. On and off. And epigenome, it's called epigenome, switches control DNA. Your DNA may stay the same, but how it behaves changes based on what you eat. You are stuck with your genetics. Okay. You are influencing them every single day. And that goes from everything from not just what you eat to what you drink, but people that smoke, people that use drugs, all of those things, all of those affect your body. It affects your genetics. And so now we wind up passing our bad genetics down to our children. So this is where they start getting the hereditary part from because it's genetics. We start destroying our genetics. And then when we have children and we have someone, so if you have someone who drinks, smokes, use drugs, all kinds of things, you drink, smoke, use drugs, all kinds of things, what you think genetically is going to be when you have a child? What happens to that child? That child will have all kinds of health issues, all kinds of health problems. So I know we don't think about it when we're younger, but that's a real thing. Okay. And this is what's never, no one ever tells you this. No one ever says to you, when you decide to choose a mate, make sure that you have, if you decide to have children, make sure you take care of these things. If you drink, if you smoke, if you use drugs, any of those things, then you might want to stop and start preparing your body to start having children. And listen, it's not going to happen overnight, but it's a great start to try to do some genetic repair to yourself. Okay. And so the people that still eating pig feet and chillings and all that garbage in their food, there's no health benefits, no nutrition from any of that food at all. It's fat, grease, and salt. And so if that's something that you're eating constantly, I remember when I was young, I had a girlfriend. Her name was Yvette. I'll never forget her. Her every single day when I used to go, we were like go to the mall shopping, and every single day when I would be picking her up, she would be, and I was like, "Why do you cook this every day?" I would ask her, "Why do you cook it every day?" She would make a pot of pig feet every day, and then have a bowl of vinegar and whatever top. And she like always trying to entice me to have it. I'm like, "Girl, not even. Look, I'll see you in the car." And just every day it seemed like that's what her diet was, and she knew how much I disliked it, and it just seemed like she would do it anyway. Even when I was coming over there, knowing that we're about to go shopping or whatever, and wind up having high blood pressure, heart disease, always swollen. So it really started affecting her later on in life. She never was able to have any children, and her health was really, really bad. And then, of course, she left here at an early age because she ate like that every single day. She was like she was addicted to the salt and the fat or whatever. And she was nobody going to stop me from eating it. And I know I stopped dating him because he wanted me to stop eating my pig or whatever. It ain't killed me yet, that YET. Get so tired of hearing people say that yet. All right. So it can affect you. Okay. So I want to get a little bit more too, in that you are living in an ecosystem. And listen, everything from the air we breathe to the water that we drink to the foods that we take in affects our overall health. It does. So if you should never be around people that smoke. I remember I had a patient. I used to work hospice when I was young, and and that was one of the experiences helping to set up the first hospice, which was in Maryland. But the lady, I never forget, she was she practiced being a Jehovah Witness, is what she had told me. And she was crying every day, saying she don't know why Jehovah turned back on her, because she never smoked a day in her life, but she had cancer. And so I said to her, were you around anyone environmentally that smoked? My husband, she said, smoked every day. I said, so you were getting secondhand smoke. Have anyone ever told you about secondhand smoke? Where it's in the walls, it's in the sheets, it's in the, I mean, secondhand smoke is everywhere. And you can smell it when it's secondhand in the walls and things like that when people are smoking. And she said, but that's still not no reason for me to get it. I wasn't doing the smoking. I said, you were inhaling it. You were ingesting it. You were getting it through your pores and everything. So please do not make the mistake of having your children around people that smoke. I had a girlfriend that smoked constantly. I remember one day. And so we were in the car, and I used to tell her, you can't smoke with my daughter in the car. Like, we can't do that. We would share riding. So I stopped share riding with her. And I'll never forget the one day we were sitting in a car waiting and waiting. And she said, I gotta have a cigarette, gotta have a cigarette. I said, girl, you cannot be smoking like this in the car. So I took my daughter out and we went and sat in her house while we were waiting. And she lit up the cigarette. I never forget. My daughter had at first time I found out she had asthma. She was smoking in the other room, and the smoke was still coming through where my daughter started heaving and shortness of breath or whatever. I'm like, what's going on? Affected by the cigarette smoke. So even though she was in another room and she called it, that's the room she smoked in, all of her children had respiratory problems. I remember that. And I couldn't believe that she smoked like that. So I was like, I cannot hang around you. I unfortunately, you're really cool. We did a lot of studying together in our cardiovascular class, but I can't hang around you because I don't want to smell it. It gives me a real bad headache. But then my daughter was affected by it. And so this is when we first found out she started having respiratory problems. And I'm like, so when we sitting up in her house and she's not smoking, my daughter's breathing through these walls. All kinds of things start coming to my mind. And when you're a young mother, you want to protect your children, even as you get older, but you start learning how to become very protective as situations come on board. And so that was people that I did not associate with because they smoked, they drank, or whatever they did, use drugs, all of that. I didn't want to associate with those kind of people. So I did not, because that's environmental, right? That's social. That's things that affect your health. All right. So now trillions of bacteria live in the body. They influence disease, mood, your immune system. And I said trillions. It's trillions. Your immune system, and then you have good bacteria health, but when you get a disease, it's an imbalance of nature. You become imbalanced. You're off balance. And so this is why we have to try to get our health. And if you take care of your health when you're younger, you will have less health problems when you get older. And that prepares your body to, if you decide to have children, to be in a much healthier environment. Because remember, when we're carrying a child in our womb, everything we take in emotionally, physically, everything environmentally affects our child. It goes right. Everything from you goes right. And remember, our skin is the first line of defense. So everything is absorbed through the skin. That's why creams and oils and all kinds of things that you use on your skin, you have to be careful with what's in them because it affects you. It absorbs through the skin, your skin, which absorbs in your bloodstream again. Everything goes through the bloodstream. And again, it goes out through the body, right? It affects everything from your gut to your heart, lungs, everything. So we have to be really careful with that. All right. Remember that your gut is not separate from your health. You know, your gut, with everything that goes in your gut, you hear a lot of people get on TV and talk about gut health and how they have prebiotics and probiotics now for you to help to take for gut health. When people tell you you can get prebiotics and probiotics in your yogurt, don't believe that. It's not enough in there to, by the time it hits the digestive tract to get through your body, it's already the acid in your stomach, your gastric acid's already killing whatever's in there. So that's not a healthy way to try to get those. All right. All right. So from parents, as parents, we pass down our microbiome, our eating patterns, our health risks. Mothers affected before birth. You're affected before the birth of your child. So when we decide to get pregnant and have children, already whatever abnormalities we have, along with the good, we have everything is there affecting our child. Everything is there from affecting our child. So that is a big, big deal for us. All right. So mothers, when you're at diet, for those women who are pregnant or carrying children, whatever, I know a lot of times we say, oh, the baby wants this. The baby wants this, pickles and ice cream or whatever you are saying that you want to eat. But you can choose healthier ways of eating when you have a child developing in you. Because remember, they're already getting from you genetically what you've already done to your form, and now you want to try to make a change for your children. So now you want to try to eat better and healthy. So, eat more salad and cucumbers. Cucumbers are good by themselves. You can pickle cucumbers. You can put some Italian dressing on the cucumbers and make your own dressing on your cucumbers. You can do tomatoes. You can do healthier choices. You can do peanut butter with celery, things like that. You can change the way that you're eating and having, if you're saying you're having these type of cravings, a lot of the cravings are mental. They really are. So you have to make sure that, I remember when I was pregnant one time, I wanted everything cold, like popsicle, popsicle, popsicle. So one of the things I wind up doing was starting to eat crushed ice. And the crushed ice, because there was no sugar in the crushed ice. It was cold. It was soothing because that's what I wanted, was something cold and soothing. You could do crushed ice. You can make flavorful crushed ice too if you want to. You can take herbal tea and you can put it in an ice tray and you can make crushed ice from those by just, it gives it a good flavor and it's giving you that same flavor as like some popsicle or something. There's lots of things you could do to change those cravings. All right. Now, when we're talking about mother, we're also talking about father. The influences of your diet. Your children will inherit what you plant the seed. You are the seed planter. The seed grows. And so whatever you're doing to your health, even from if you have a negative attitude, if you are not treating mother right, if you're doing those things, it's all affected. The child is affected by all of those things. So we have to change our way of thinking. Okay, you are not just feeding yourself, you are feeding the future generations when you're talking about what you're eating and emotionally, physically, all of that. You're affecting the future generations that we have coming up. All right, so some of the things, poor diet This is where responsibility begins. Poor diet can damage your microbiomes, effect on the immune system, and pass down imbalance. Bad habits do not just stay with you, they travel through generations. We should do more things like trying to eat more things, like I said, vegetables, fruits, whole foods, and fermented foods. And I know a lot of people do not like the way fermented foods taste. Like I do a lot of kombucha. I love kombucha. It is fermented, and but it also works very, very well for your health. And they say, oh, people who have cancer drink, kombucha. Well, the reason the people who have cancer drink it is because they're trying to get their health back. But you do not have to have cancer or illness to drink the kombucha. You do not have to have that. All right. Okay. I want to talk about again processed foods. They harm your body, and whole foods restore. So, processed foods, your body doesn't know what it's getting. When foods are processed, they go through a chemical transition. They use chemicals to try to, well, they have to process the foods to give it flavor, taste. They use a lot of sodium, salt, things like that to process foods. And all of those things, if your body doesn't know what it's getting, is questionable. So it stores it away for later, not knowing what it is. And so it'll go to where it stores fats because it doesn't understand what to use or how to break down what you're giving it. And most processed foods are filled with chemicals. So that's what happens there. Okay. All right. Who you're choosing to become and what you're choosing to do for future generations makes a really big deal on how you are eating or how you decide to eat. Now, I did speak about a segment on cooking healthy foods, and I thought about maybe the next segment that we do, we can do like cooking in the kitchen, like on how to make some healthy foods or go with some different healthy foods and things like that. Or you all who want to share in the information can come up with some ideals and concepts also to help with us trying to get people to eat better. So I understood my granddaughter's concern when you have friends who are in her generation where these children are more knowledgeable, you would think that they would eat better, they would know better. But then again, we're talking about what genetics and the things that their parents still continue to eat and do, and they continue to eat and do it. So I'm not sure how successful a cooking segment would be, but I would like to try it, like being in the kitchen and come up with some healthy alternatives or healthy dishes on some of the foods that people have the hardest time getting rid of. That's one of the things, being one under the Mohammedan faith, being Muslim, you want to call yourself Muslim or Muslim, one of the very first things they tell you when you become taking your Shahada is you have to give up pork. And people have a really hard time with that. A lot of Muslims still eat like a lot of food like lamb and cow, beef, all those things. You have to look at this. Anything that bleeds carries disease. So anything that bleeds carries disease. So whatever flesh, when I was out eating the other day, the ladies told us that they got rid of a lot of turkey. And I have to ask my son how many billions of turkeys they killed because of some type of disorder, she was saying. And she was telling her company when she went to a meeting that why don't they have more vegan type foods in the restaurant, because people may not want to eat turkey or chicken or whatever. And so that's the thing, listen to that. They killed billions of turkeys because they had some kind of disease in the flesh. So they couldn't use the turkey. So they killed them all. But if it was that they didn't catch it, somebody ate that flesh and got sick from it. Right? So that's the thing we have to think about, is that if it bleeds, it carries disease. And you just cannot get around that. Okay. Okay. So I'm just looking over my notes on things I wanted to talk about today. My granddaughter said she was too shy to come on, so she didn't want to come on with me today because she said she was too shy to do so. Okay. So the truth about what they did not teach you is that foods do not just nourish your body, they instruct your body. And you probably say, how does food instruct your body? Well, we say food is nourishment. We usually mean it gives you energy, it feels hunger, and it keeps the body going. But that is only the surface. Food sends signals to your body. Every time you eat, your body does not just use the food, it reads it. Food contains nutrients, chemicals, and compounds. And like I said, I didn't want to try to get too scientific on you and try to keep it real, but most of us have had science of some sort of science in school at one point. And so, and a lot of us, we're scientists. Remember, the problem, nobody said we're more science. So we're scientists. So that science means knowledge. So we're knowledgeable about most things. Okay. So this acts like messages that tell your body what to do. For an example, whole foods repair, strengthen, balance. Processed foods store fat, increase inflammation, and stress the system. Food affects your genes instruction at the deepest level. Your DNA does not change easily, but how it behaves does. So how, and think about people, the way that they react. Remember I said earlier, children, when they eat sugar, it's a prime example. They could be sitting down quiet watching TV, and all of a sudden they up jumping up and down, carrying on, running, you're trying to catch up with them and trying to bring them down from all that sugar. So that shows you right there. Okay, so you're giving your body instructions on how to function. Food programs your internal environment. Okay, which bacteria grows and which bacteria dies? Okay, healthy food support beneficial bacteria. Poor diet supports harmful imbalance. You are feeding organisms that directly affect your mood, your immunity, and your health. Food impacts your mind and emotions, your brain chemistry, your hormones, and energy levels. And so remember, I said that too, even in the brain. So, like a lot of times you'll see commercials where they'll say, oh, if you have brain fog, take these herbs or take this powder or something that they have created, and it'll give you more clarity. They found, now they're trying to say that when people have Alzheimer's disease, they're saying that now they consider that instead of diabetes 2 is considered diabetes 3, where it affects your brain. So some type of imbalance, hormonal imbalance, and they believe it's related to diabetes. And so a lot of people start to have dementia, and eventually it goes full blown. Okay. And so it becomes where you're starting to be absent minded, you're not thinking properly, you react slower to things. So that's a hormone imbalance. That's imbalances. Okay. All right. So this means whatever you're taking into your body affects the way you think, to feel, and respond. Food extends beyond generational. It's everything. So again, as I spoke earlier when I first opened up, that the food affects us generationally. And so it does. And so what we pass down to our children. So when they consider you talking about, well, if your parents had diabetes, if your parents have it, you're going to have it, because what they're talking about is genetics. What you did to your body is now passed down to your children. And before we even decide to have any children, we do not think about what we should do for our bodies. And so you have a lot of times there's different organizations now that help people prepare, for their body. Like a lot of women that help assist women with pregnancies now, doulas. You have a lot of them who get into all of the help, not just the preparing of bringing a child into the world, because you have your midwives and you have your doulas, and then you have those who are midwives and doulas. They try to prepare you health wise too. They try to get your health in better condition when you're carrying your child, to make you for having an easier delivery. And things like we should be able to do is, yoga. I know a lot of people say, oh, that doesn't really help, but yoga does help. Yoga helps relax the mind and the body. And also it helps regulate your blood pressure. So I would challenge you, If even meditation, some of us maybe physically cannot do yoga or whatever because of our sizes or ages. You can still do small portions of yoga. You can do things like walking, meditating. And now they have a lot of these videos that I found online that are frequency videos. Now I ordered a frequency machine for myself and Taj when, Taj, I was helping Taj heal. And I never forget the very first week that I had that frequency on for him. He rested like I've never seen him rest. I mean, literally, we had to check on him other than feeding him to make sure that he was all right. His body was so out of balance, out of frequency. And that literally started, I mean, literally. And he said, I never rested so well in my life. He's like, this thing, I'm afraid to keep this thing on. And we would have it on for him. So, and I mean, it really helped with health. So, health is not only physical, it's also mental. But because we're on an infrequency balances of the things that they give us in this environment, you need to be back on frequency. And I do teach about frequency healing and how to get on the right frequency and things like that. So for people who may be interested in that, we can do an actual session on frequency healing. What you need to do, what hertz you need to be at, and etc. to get yourself in balance. Tuning forks and things like that. All of those natural things that we can use to keep ourselves balanced. All right. All right. So I want to talk about every time you eat, and I want to challenge you all to something. I want to challenge you all to whenever the foods you eat. So I know it's homework. I always give homework. So most of y'all probably do not do it, but if you would take and try to keep some kind of journal, and this may have them at the dollar store. I know everything now is like $1.50, $1.75, but or you Walmart, you can get a journal if you do not have one, or a composition notebook. I want you to draw a line down the page of the composition book. And I want you to write down what you have for your break fast. And in that composition, I want you to do a normal day of what you normally would eat. And on the other half of it, I want you to wait at least an hour. And after an hour, I want you to write down how you're feeling emotionally, physically, etc. Write it down to see of how what you ate affected you that day. Especially the first meal of the day is your break fast. It regulates your blood sugar, your hormonal balance, your very first meal. All your meals do, but your very first meal you consume after fasting for 12, 13 hours, however long you rested, is going to affect you immensely. Then I want you to try to eat a healthy meal. I want you to try to eat something different than you would normally eat. And I want to challenge you that. So I like for you to try maybe a smoothie without sugar. You can put some monk sugar in it, maybe monk sugar or a little of agave if you don't like the taste of fruit by itself without something sweet. A little bit of agave, just enough to sweeten it just a little bit to take the bitterness out if you think the fruit is bitter. I like for you to take making sure that you're eating the bread will be whole wheat bread. If you're not making it yourself, get one that says the whole bread, a whole wheat bread. It will not have all of that processed stuff in it. It'll say whole wheat bread. Now, it will not last as long as those processed breads that I don't even know why they call it bread. But the whole wheat bread, try having that slice of whole wheat bread. If you're going to drink like the juice, I would like for you, if you drinking juice is a little bit more sugary than eating the fruit, but what I like for you to try the juices with beets. I want you to try putting beets in your juice, using a beet juice, a ginger. And if you want to get it a little tiny bit sweet, an apple. I want you to juice the apple. I want you to squeeze the squeeze the juice out of the beets. And also I want you to add, making sure when you do it, depending on the size of the glass, how much ginger. If you're doing fresh ginger, because you're going to blend it all up, and it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful drink to try that. Or if you do not want to do that, do some organic oatmeal, organic, or steel oats. Steel oats are harder and they take longer to cook. I like the organic oatmeal and not the instant. This is the organic oatmeal, right? This is real oatmeal. It doesn't have all this processed stuff in it. It's real oatmeal. Try that, the oatmeal. And you can put, if you want to put coconut butter in there, you can do coconut. If you want coconut for some fat, some healthy fat, I like for you to try that with a piece of fruit. All right. And just go and see how your day is. And then I can post menus. What I'll do is all the people that came to the call today, I'll look at you and those who were there, and I'll just post it in the email, the meals that I'll put together for a menu plan. And I want you to just see how it feels. Then after you've eaten that, 4 hours later, if you're able to, because you may be at a job, if you're able to have a lunch, I want you to try to have a lunch, something different. Like today, I made myself a mushroom. It was so good. A mushroom steak. I call it mushroom steak with, it had the green peppers, onions on there. I had that on there. And I put on a healthy roll, just a small roll. You don't need something really big. And try that. Or you can do salad or spinach or kale salad or something like that. I want you, a lot of you all know how to eat healthy. I just want you to try that, and 4 hours later, and I want you to take that whole entire day. And then 4 hours later again for your dinner, and have a healthy dinner. Whatever you decide to make, you can do carb-free dinner, and make whatever you want to make for a carb-free dinner. Remember, I'm asking you not to have any flesh, because flesh makes the body tired. And I'm asking you to have foods that are not acidic. And so I'm going to send out the acidity chart, because you can choose what foods are acid and not acid. For those who may want it, you can just let me know and I can send it. And I want you to just try having a full whole weekend with, just because weekends is better to try if you're not at the job. But if you are, try a full healthy weekend, and you're going to jot down how you're feeling and see if it does not make a big difference. Because if you do not ever try it, you will not know whether it makes a difference to you or not. And so, a lot of people feel like they have to have carb loaded foods, and you do not. But remember, if you want carbs, try to have whole wheat, that whole food thought again. Try to have it. If you have to have pasta, make sure it's a whole wheat pasta, because it's still going to have carbohydrates in there. It's going to be a little less heavier on the carbs, but it's still going to be carbs, but it's going to be healthier. And just try for a weekend. So that'll take, probably can't do it on a Friday if you work at Joe. But if you can do Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, try that. Or if you can just do Saturday and Sunday. And I would love to hear what your results are. Remember, you can always email me at realmorsetalk@yahoo.com. So you can use that email to take the weekend challenge. I'm asking you to do the weekend food challenge. Go ahead and try to do that with me and see how you feel after you do that challenge. The main thing is we have to start to learn how to eat and how to take information in. We have to take care of our physical health. We have to take care of our mental health. And so the foods that we eat play a major role. But also I want to talk about light exercise or things to keep you moving. If you're a person that's sedentary and you are always sitting and you don't go out much, or you don't do any type of exercise at all, and you're not moving about, or get out and take a walk. Like, the weather is changing, so get out and take like a 10-minute walk for 10 minutes. If your area is safe enough to walk around your area, or maybe go to a park and walk around the park. Or if you have a treadmill, get on your treadmill and just try 10 minutes in the rising. Try 10 minutes in the rising. And then if you get to do it again sometime throughout the day, before you go to bed, try another 10 minutes. So I'm only asking you to try to do 20 minutes a day of getting some movement in. And if you find a yoga video that you like and you think you can do the yoga, or a meditation video that you like, I have some thoughts. I like to do the kinetic yoga and kinetic meditation, but try some of those things. And just try a little bit to change your lifestyle to where you are, because a lot of us, as we get older, we don't move as much, we don't get out as much, we don't do as many things, and so we do everything by convenience. And listen, even today most people do not do their own shopping. They can order food online, they can do grocery shopping online, so they call their foods in. So go out to the grocery store and choose your own whole foods, your own produce. Get out there and let yourself get out there and get some exercise in, get some sun in for some vitamin D, and get out there and move about and walk around. And listen, I'm asking you to challenge this for just a weekend, but you might like it where you'll start doing this on a daily basis. I know when it's cold outside, it's harder to get out and you don't feel like it. I mean, it's the whole mental thing. No one wants to be outside in the cold and, moving around. It's not as comfortable. But while the weather is changing, I want you to try that. Right now, you should be able to get melons, with the weather changing. Try making your fruits more like water-based fruit, like your melons. I love watermelon. So, watermelon with the seeds in it, cantaloupe with the seeds in it, honeydew melon with the seeds in it. I know these fruits are hard to get in the wintertime, but we're spring and summer right now. Try getting fruits that are more water based. Get those fruits, and they taste really well. And one thing about the melons, if you put sea salt on the melons, it helps bring the sweetness out of the melons. So try sea salt, or putting them on. If you're trying to get a sweeter taste from the melons, try the sea salt. All right. Berries are always, they're full of antioxidants. Blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, even cherries. Cherries are more on the sweeter side of the fruit, where they have more calories and carbs than most fruit. But go ahead, and if you like cherries, do the cherries. Also, oranges, lemon, grapefruit. Those are things we can probably get all season. But listen, those are acidic fruits that become alkaline when they enter the body. So even though they may be sour fruits or whatever, you think of them as bitter or acidic, they're acidic until they enter the body, then they neutralize in the body. So they're very healthy for you. Lemon helps so many different things. It helps cut down on your appetite as well, as help neutralize the body. Grapefruit, same thing. Ruby grapefruit, I find, is the most flavorful one for me. It's called the red ruby grapefruit. I love that grapefruit. Of course, if you're taking certain medications, you got to be careful with grapefruit. If you're taking certain medications, you can't take it with or without. So if you're on medication, check your medication to see if it lists grapefruit is something that you cannot have like an hour or 2 hours within having that medication. So say if you take your medication at 6, you may not be able to have that to 8. And I'm not pushing medication by any means. So I don't want anyone to say, oh, Prime Minister was on there pushing medication. That's not what I'm saying. A lot of people are on medications for whatever reasons that you're on them. You believe in them. There's something else you haven't found to assist you with your health. Whatever the reason you're taking medications, I'm not here to judge you. What I'm here to talk about today is how we can get healthier, eat healthier, and be healthier beings, mind, body, and soul. That's what I'm on here to talk about today. And so I'm not judging that. I'm just saying, if you are on a lot of medication, you want to try to come off of some of those. Look into people like myself, Dr. Jazz, who are into herbs and who may be able to assist you in herbs that may do the same thing that a lot of the chemical substances do. So you might want to try doing some of that, changing that. But my ultimate thing is, I want you to change your mindset and change the way you're thinking about eating, and try to do something different. Because as I said, unhealthy eating not only affects us personally, but it also affects us generationally. And so we're talking again about the genetics. And that's what happens when we pass those things down to our children. Not just food, but social environment as well. We live in an ecosystem that we're exposed to everything. And so you want to try to minimize as much as possible. When I was in California, Sister BJO and her husband used to take me to, it was a sister, and I'm trying to remember the name of the therapy because I tried to order one of those tubs. I got to remember the name of it. But anyway, what she did was you would go to her and she would, relax you, talk to you. She had these magnetic balls, which I still have, that is very good for pain. Sometimes when I'm in a lot of pain, I use those to rub against my skin if I'm having an off day with some pain or discomfort, and it goes away. So I still have those balls to this day. They're very, very helpful, very soothing. But anyway, she would have me do that. She would go over your whole body with the magnetic balls, and she would have you put your feet in a tub. Oh, I gotta remember the name of that method. But anyway, what she would do is have you sit there, and I think we sat there for maybe like 20 minutes to 30 minutes. And when you were done, as you're sitting there, you'll see all of these different colors of metals coming out of your body, like different colors of it. And anyway, the interesting thing was she could tell you what each one of them meant, and she give you this actual brochure you can look at, and you would see it coming out of the bottom of your feet. And so I'm talking to people about that today, because a lot of people do not take good care of their feet, and they don't realize what gets into the bottom and soles of your feet. And so even when you're walking around your house, we don't wear shoes in our house. We don't wear shoes, but we put slippers on that does not go outside, or a footie, something to cover your feet, because you want to protect yourself and your feet. Do you know there's a lot of things that could be healed through your feet? And so you want to make sure that you're taking really good care of your feet. She used to do me, and I would see all of these toxins come out, and I would be reading the different colors. She didn't put anything in my water to make make me think. The only thing she put in the water was, the solution you put in there to help your feet, not nothing else, no tricks or whatever. And anybody who's had that therapy know what I'm talking about. But anyway, when I left there, I was like, wow, we want to open up a wellness center. I've been talking about this for years. And I want to implement that into the wellness center, where you can sit there and you can pull it from your feet, and I could look at the different metals and that. And this also helps you know what you need to include in your body to eat and drink and to eliminate from your body. And so it was just a lot of fun, but I just always enjoyed it, and I felt really good about it. Felt really good when I would leave there. She would do the whole therapy for me and in my feet. And so we have to take care of our things. So a lot of times, a lot of us take advantage of our feet. But there's people that wish they had feet that wind up getting them amputated for whatever reason, diabetes or infection, illness, or whatever. So your feet are very, very important too. So we need to make sure that we take good care of our feet, our toe, the whole entire feet. That includes your toes and everything, all the way up to your ankles. You want to do that. But also make not only just your feet, we talked about the skin earlier. Being careful of what you put on your skin, because what you put on your skin seeps into your body. All right, we spoke about that earlier. And when that gets into your body, it gets into your bloodstream. All right, so now our bloodstream is being affected by what we put on our skin. Okay, what we put in our mouths. We talked about earlier with eating. When you go into your mouth and you have your tongue in your mouth, and your tongue is getting nutrition from whatever you're eating. So it's getting that, and it's going through your bloodstream. Your tongue goes directly to your bloodstream. That's why when people are having a problem with their heart and need to take pills or whatever to help them with their heart, nitroglycerin and aspirin and all those, they put it under the tongue, because that goes directly into the bloodstream. So you want to make sure that, like I said earlier, whenever you're eating anything and starting your day off, you want to make sure the very first thing you put into your mouth is something that is healthy. That's going to get your day going. That's going to get your glucose going. That's going to help regulate your whole entire day. And that's by your very first meal of the day. Now, fasting doesn't hurt either. So I want to talk about fasting, because you can fast for several days. When I say fasting, Ramadan just left not too long ago. And during the month of Ramadan, Ramadan's discipline is like, say, from 5 to 5 or 6 to 6 or whatever, almost 12 hours. So if you get up and you have a meal, during Ramadan, if you have your very first meal before sunrise and then your last meal, suhoor, after sunset, then, you fasted those many hours and then you're eating. But suppose you just want to fast. You do not have to do any eating for several days. Say you just want to drink water, you know, I suggest, if you're just going to do a water fast and drink water, include lemon into the water, right? Because lemon is going to help. And include lemon. And if you don't want lemon, just straight water, that's fine. And I'm not talking about lemon in a bottle, whatever they call the stuff, the lemon in the bottle, real lemon, whatever. I'm talking about real fresh squeezed lemons with seeds in them. You can take a tablespoon of lemon and put it into your water, into a glass like this size of water, like a 10-ounce glass of water. And if you have a smaller size water, like 6 to 8 ounces, then you want to probably put half of that in the water and drink that throughout your day, because fasting does not hurt. If you want to not eat in the rising at all, some people don't like break fast food. They don't want to eat. They don't like nothing but dinner food. Then you just want to eat the one meal a day, drink your water all day to stay hydrated, then go ahead and have a healthy meal. And I'm going to tell you a trick. If you're having a meal that has, like you say, you have your vegetables and your starch and your protein, start your food off eating with your vegetable. And especially if you have avocado or anything like that, because that's going to be the first signal. Whatever you put in your mouth and start chewing and go down your digestive tract is the first food that your body's going to signal that you're having. So start off with the healthiest part of your food. So if you have vegetables, start off with your vegetables and then consume the rest of your food. All right. But, give it a little bit. Start off with the vegetables and let your body get the vegetables in. And that's a trick that a lot of people probably don't know. But remember, I said the very first meal you take in of the day is going to be the meal that starts your whole day off. All right. And so we just want to try some of those things. And so I'm going to go to the chat really quickly and see what you all may have here in the chat for me, and, taking a little break in between, and then see if anyone has any questions, comments, or suggestions about things about healthy eating, and, any questions that you'd like me to answer that you feel like I may not have covered so far. And so we have like a good, I want to say maybe 32 minutes or so to do that. So let me go to the chat and see what we might have here. All right, so I'm going to start from the top. I'm going to take a little sip of my water. And I know a lot of people say, oh, you talk about health, ice water is unhealthy. No, it's not. My water is alkaline water. My ice cubes are purified ice cubes. And so I make sure purified alkaline. And I love ice. It's cold. It's very warm here where I am today. I think it went to 86 degrees. What about where you are? And so ice water works for me today. That felt so refreshing. All right, so we have Islam Prime Minister National Grand Sheikh Issa Bey. That's the Adept Moore 7. Islam, all right. Overall, yes, we are. Yes, are we living to eat or eating to live? That's a great question. That is, are we eating to live or living to eat? And that is a great question to ask anyone. Which way are you doing it? Very good question. Shukran for that. All right. Miss Jazzy 1960. Mothers do not like to take the time to cook non-processed foods. And that is so true. And that's why I was sharing this story with my mother when they came out with boxed mashed potatoes. I'm just remembering some of the stuff. Boxed mashed potatoes, all kinds of canned stuff. We used to cook a tuna. My mother would get these tunas and she would have me cook the tuna, peel the skin off of it, let it cool, and then break it into pieces, like, break it into like they do tuna in a can. And one part of the tuna I would put aside to make tuna casserole, and the other part to tuna fish. So my mother used to do it with fresh tuna. Then when cans became popular, we had tuna cans, all kinds of tuna cans, and it never tastes the same when you're doing tuna from a fresh tuna to a canned tuna. So, that's the thing. People, when they're used to eating a certain way and then you change the way they're eating, they can tell. My brother still didn't like the canned tuna. And I don't know if they like it today because they were used to having fresh tuna cooked, and then all of a sudden they went to canned tuna. So that's a great example. All right, the more 74, just saying, just Islam. All right. I see Lee Bay 2334. Love, true peace, freedom, and justice. Islamism, Moors, Muslims, nobles. Shukran. And then we have Lee Bay. Oh, okay. Praise Allah, God. Praise God, Allah Supreme. Honor to the Holy and Divine Prophet Nodra Ali, born January 8th, 1886 in the state of North Carolina. Moorish Science Temple of America. Love, true peace, freedom, and justice. Shukran. All right, Shukran. I see you put that in there several times. Okay. Okay, and you always do send us the message that the Moorish Science of America, the National Movement, Old Canine Temple, Newark, New Jersey, Nationality and Divine Creed, Love, True Peace, Freedom, and Justice, Islamism. And shukran for all that you do put in here. I'm sure that people get to see it. The Moorish Science Temple of America. Let's see, not Negroes, colorful, black people, or Ethiopians. You got slash Abyssinians. All right. So the prophet never said Abyssinians was not part of the identification. So I just want to make sure that's clear. He never said that. Blondell Sykes, vegan soul food. Nadira Jenkins Ill. All right. So are you giving us that's who has their own vegan soul food, and what territory? Can you tell us where that territory is so we can share that? Because I would love to share that if that's what you tell us. So her name is Nadira Jenkins Ill. If that's you or an individual that has their own vegan restaurant. I think that says Boo Paul J8V. Peace and love. Is that Dom 29? Uh Rashbala. I'm trying to see what Rashbala Prime Minister song. Okay, Tunis to Metal, Islam Nobles. Lady Thorough, Islam Umi. All right, Shukran. See. Hello, Prime Minister. What are your thoughts of coconut water? And this is AKA, Akachi XW4CP. So this is the thing. Coconut water. I love harmless coconut water. Coconut water is very good for you if you get the ones that are not coconut juice, that are not filled with sugars. The only sweetness of coconut should come from the coconut, which coconuts are sweet. And so coconut water is very hydrating. It's one of the things in the hospital we used to use when people were very dehydrated. We even had times when someone was very hydrated, like they had heat stroke. We would put coconut water in IV bags and put it through their veins, mainline the coconut water. So real coconut water is very good and healthy for you. These things that's full of sugar, it may say coconut water, but you have to read the labels. Okay, so coconut water, if it's natural coconut water, good coconut water, and harmless is expensive. They do take you for a ride with that harmless, but it's the best coconut water. And I first experienced harmless coconut water when I was in California, visiting Sister BGL and her husband. That was when I first got a hold of harmless coconut water. I had been drinking coconut water, different ones, different brands. I can't even remember the brands I used to drink before the actual coconut water that I drink now. But yes, I love coconut water. Okay, it says, why the elder Moors have not been having some form of lands to have their own supermarkets to feed their own people by now, instead of keeping buying from the Albion supermarkets that toxic for us. That okay, that is toxic for us, and that's by Goods and 4T 8356. And you're right. I mean, I do blame that we have not done what we need to do to get land, and not only the elders, but now today we need to still try to do that. And like I said, Sister Shakur, I don't have my phone in here. Sister Shakur gave me a Asiatic farm land that has fruits, vegetables, and all of that on there. The people are growing that now. So you're right. We should have our own to grow that. When I was in California, brother Ishmael took me to a land that him and some of his friends were growing all their vegetables and fruit on that land. And I'm not sure if they still have that land. I have to ask his wife. And, I mean, we should be getting from them. I know the thing is that when we have to travel so far to get things, we need to be able to have those things right here for ourselves. So you're absolutely right. I agree 100%. I put it on us, the elders, that we haven't taken the time to get it done. And also, I put it back out to you all. Just because we didn't get it done in our time does not mean it cannot be done. Okay. So I'll put it right back out there. Okay. So saying the elders, but now since the elders did not do it, you have to take it up and do it. Okay. Amy V. Anna Bay. I don't want to mispronounce people's words, but I mean, appellations or name. AMEV, as someone say, Ambien, Anna Bay. All right. Much love and respect to everyone and to you, Prime Minister. All right, shukran. All right, so anyway, as I said before earlier, I wanted to do real more talk on making sure that we're doing the things that we need to cover, because as Moors, we have to talk real about things. And we know as elders, a lot of you younger people are probably disappointed because we didn't get to do things that you all think we should have done. And I'll take blame for that too with the elders. Excuse me. But now that we know that was not done with the elders, we didn't get the things done that we should have got done during our time. Now we know what needs to be done. You're more informed, you're more ingenious people. Then let's get it done. Okay, let's go ahead and get it done. So let's start talking about getting it done and how to get it done. All right, and the first thing we need to grow anything is we need land, right? We definitely need land to be able to grow what we need to grow. So we're going to have to do that, making sure that we have the seeds to plant it, making sure that someone able to cultivate it. Because when you're talking about growing your own foods, even in your own backyard, even if you do your own, it takes maintenance. Someone has to have the ability and willingness to get out there and have it done. And I remember Sheikh Kareem Mohammed Il, our defense minister, was Sheikh Kareem Mohammed Bey here, our defense minister. I know before he transitioned, he was creating in his backyard a garden. And he wanted to be able to have it where he could sell fruits and vegetables right from his. So he was turning it into a business, of course, where people would be able to come buy fruits and vegetables and things from him. And he was having a really hard time because the soil was so hard and dry. And I remember him and I looking up how to get proper organic soil so the seeds will grow properly and all of that. So it's investigationist work. It's not just as simple as getting out there tossing seeds. Once you do, you have to cultivate them. So we have a lot of work to do on trying to start building our own gardens and having our own farms. Some of us are never going to give up foods like eggs and things. And let's face it, eggs are convenient. They're very highly acidic, though. I'm going to put that out there first. Eggs are very highly acidic, but eggs are so convenient. Most people associate breakfast with eggs. And they also, and like, boiled eggs. poached eggs, scrambled eggs, egg sandwich, uh, frittatas, all types of things with eggs, right? So people have a very hard time giving up eggs. So if you have to eat eggs, you want to try to eat organic eggs. And I'm saying if you have to eat them by thought that you need to have an egg or you want to have an egg, or sometimes you have an egg every now and then or whatever, you want to make sure that you're growing your own farm for eggs. So you have to make sure that the chickens are healthy, that or hens, I should say, that produce the eggs, and you want to make sure that they're healthy and that they're in a clean environment, and you're going to give people organic eggs. So for those who still have to have eggs or want to have eggs, you can have a healthier egg. Is the egg going to be less acidic? Haven't saw any proof scientifically that the egg is less acidic, but it is a healthier egg from an organic environment, because you know that the birds that are pushing the eggs out are not fed with hormones. And that's the difference. They're not feeding them all kinds of garbage and hormones. They have to take care of your livestock. You have to take care of them differently than you would if you were non-organic. So that's what that some foods people just do not want to give up. And I know eggs is one of them, and cheese. I know that, cheese, all those things come from an animal. Cheese comes from cows, and some people said they've had goat cheese, and I've seen it in the store, but goat cheese and things like that, I guess it's to your preference or taste. But if you have to have cheese, you know what I mean, get good quality cheese. Try to get things that are healthier for you to eat. Okay. All right. All right, let me just go back to the chat really quickly. So thank you for answering my question. You're more than welcome. One more question. Do you recommend adding mineral salt to your water for better hydration and mineral intake? Yes. And so there was a brother at one time that was teaching me about adding minerals to the water, and it was the pink Himalaya sea salt. And he was saying I should drink a glass of that every single day. This was like maybe, I guess I would say 15, 20 years ago. It's interesting that you brought that up. So I would say yes, to get your minerals in, especially if you're not eating certain foods and you're not taking enough vitamins, or because you have to be careful about vitamins too. We got to make sure that they're real vitamins and not fake vitamins and substitutes and all those things that you're again confuses the body. They telling you, oh, you're eating healthy, you're taking in healthy, but it's confusing the body, and then it's storing it away as fat because it doesn't recognize what you're taking in. So I would say yes. I would say that would be much better to have to get the minerals in. Absolutely. And also, for people who have joint elements or aches or nerve pain, primrose oil is something good to have too. And when I first started out doing it, I had too many drops when I was putting this. I would say take 2 to 3 drops of primrose oil and put it into get the organic and drop it into your water as well. And it makes you feel much better. It helps heal your cells, and it's really, really good for the nervous system. All right. It says food scraps make great fertilizer. They sure do. If you can store them up in a bag, all right, and you let them, you store, if you can stand the smell of them and you plant, you absolutely, the best scraps is the vegetables. Like if you cut off the stalk of the broccoli and you don't make vegetable broth out of it, do all those types of things. It makes good compost. Absolutely. You have to let it rot though. It doesn't make compost in this condition that it's in. You have to let it rot, and then it makes good compost. All right. These players, boxers, actors, and business people that are Asiatics don't put no money towards having farms, organic foods, and health foods to feed the more is much more better. Okay, and that came from the other question came from Miss Jazzy 1960, and buy goods and 4T 8356. You're right. All the people that do have fiat, we talk about this all the time. They do not give back to the communities or do anything about healthy living. Listen, they're so busy trying to live large. They eat in restaurants every day. Even the so-called vegan restaurants, the ones that are vegan, they eat foods that are so unhealthy, full of butter, fat. For those who are not vegan, they don't really care. For those who are vegan, they have some pretty good vegan restaurants. The food is expensive, but they do eat there. But listen, not only with restaurants and foods, they don't come back to the community to give anything back at all, from housing to clothing. But not only that, we can't even blame them because as Moors, we're not doing our part. To be very, very honest, like this is our online schooling that we have here, and we have barely anybody supporting it. We tell you if you send $7 a week or $1, $2 a week, or enroll children or promote it or whatever, we don't get that. So we just, for some reason, do not want to support our own. And I'll be honest, I get tired of talking about it. I just want to do the work, just do the work. Try to make it for the children and do the work. That's the best we can do, because nobody wants to help out for whatever reason. I'm just not sure. Miss Jazzy 1960, I drink okra water first thing in the rising, and I use sea moss and fruit smoothies. All right. So I know that that's healthy. Now, I love okra. I've never had okra water. I'm going to have to try that. But okra is like almost every other meal for me. One of my most favorite vegetables is okra. I'm going to have to try the okra water. I've never done okra water before. And I'm just thinking how I guess I would cook the okra, or is it raw okra? I'm not sure. And then drain it and drink it. But let me know. With one of the things I like what Dr. Sabi said about vegetables, he said whether they raw, cooked, or burnt to a crisp, a real vegetable never loses its value. So all the minerals and nutrition that's in a vegetable, if it's a real vegetable and not a hybrid, it doesn't lose it no matter how much you're cooking it. And that question came about because people were saying, oh, you should eat your vegetables raw. And everybody cannot eat raw vegetables, right? So, you cook them because they're easier to eat. They're easier for you to digest. And Dr. Sabi broke it down in a lecture. And he said that a real vegetable, even if you burn it to a crisp, will never lose its value. So we have to remember that. So I like my vegetables cooked, but I do like some raw. I'm big on beets. I'm big on okra. I love that. I love peas and chickpeas and lentils and all of those things. I made a pasta salad the other day, and I used the peas in it. I used that in there. I didn't put chickpeas in this one, but I've cut up the cucumbers with the red onions, and I use the tomatoes. I instead of using because Dr. Sabi said we should use the Roman tomatoes or the cherry tomatoes, the small ones. I use those and put it in there, and it was really, really good. So I had a pasta salad, a whole wheat pasta salad yesterday. That's what I had for dinner, and I made some green beans. Like I was saying, I was popping them and cooking them, and it was really, really, really good. And so again, we want to make sure that we try to eat as healthy as possible. It's really important that we do that. Eat as healthy as possible. And we have to remember some things. So I want to go over some things before we run out of time, really, really quickly. Before we run out of time, I want to go over just a few things that I talked about today, just to make sure we're all on the same page. And listen, I want to thank you all for coming today, listening to what I had to say about it, because I was like, oh, is this going to be good to talk about? With people probably say, oh, she's talking about health. I'm not coming on there talking about no health or how I eat. I'm going to keep eating the way I want to eat. I can hear the mind thought of some people. And then my granddaughter is like, no, grandmother, people want to hear about that healthy eating. So I think that should be something that we talk about on Real More Talk. So shout out to you, Janaya. I don't know if you're on here or not, but shout out to you for the thought of having this on the show. All right. So I did want to go over really quickly. We talked about the importance of the eating, that you are what you eat. So my question was, are you what you eat? And the answer to that question is yes. But not only are you, but your children and your children's children and generationally. And we need to stop somewhere. We need to stop it and start doing better for ourselves so our generations could do better. And listen, that's socially, politically, economically, health. We have to talk about mental health. We have to talk about our wellness and our being. Everything we do, our social structure, everything, we have to change that to a improvement so we can get healthier generations of children coming on board. All right. It's really, really important to do that. All right. We also talked about how food is not just food to taste good, but it's fuel for the body. And as I said earlier, if you take on that challenge, the very first meal of your day, that's what you should do to see how your day goes. And again, it could be a composition book, a journal, whatever. Draw that line straight down the middle of that line. It's like a before and after. And I want you to do that, a regular meal, preferably on Thursday if you can do Friday, and then do Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, or if you can just do Saturday and Sunday. Like I said, changing your diet, the foods that you're eating, choose whole foods, choose healthier foods. If you're interested, you can send me an email to realmorsetalk@yahoo.com, and I can send you out the menu that I'd like for you to try for those 3 days. I'll send you a 7-day menu, but at least try 3 of those days. Okay. All right. It says thank my good sister for your comment back to what I spark for all of her, all to hear and help each other. Okay. All right. Wonderful. All right. Let's see. Raw okra, cut it up and put it in a container with spring water. Okay. All right. So would alkaline water be okay? Because alkaline water, let it sit for 2 days and then strain off the water and drink it and refill container. When the okra sinks to the bottom, it's time for new. Okay, new batch. Okay. Thank you, Shukran, for that. Shukran for that. I'm going to try that. As much okra as I eat, I'm definitely going to try that. Oh, my goodness. I can't wait to try that now. Shukran, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. Again, so conversation wise, we talked about the science of better eating, and we talked about free radicals in the body and how free radicals consume healthy cells. So what radicals are cells. So free radicals are the unhealthy cells that recruit healthy cells. So this is where we get massive tumors and cancers and things like that, because it gets together and in one area, and they gather up in one area and it causes pain because the tumor is trying to push its way out. So we want to try to eliminate free radicals in our body as much as we can. Now we have to have some free radicals in our body. We have to have some, but we do not have to have more free radicals on our body that we're having unhealthy cells. Okay. So I wanted to make sure I went over that again. And I want you to think about it, thinking about your thinking. And I want you to also try some type of meditation. It's really important that we try to meditate. And, you know, one of the things that I love about when Prophet Nubajali was on the scene, that's one of the things that was said is that he took a lot of time out to meditate and think about things. And so there is in the Circle 7 Quran, there's a portion in there that talks about meditation. And so we can see how important the meditation is. All right. So we should want to meditate. And like I said, try meditation, try yoga. The very first thing you do want to do is try to change your very way of eating. And I know a lot of us, I don't want to say us because I don't want to consume myself into eating flesh, because I do not. But a lot of people eat flesh, and I know you all love it and you think it's healthy, it's protein and all that. I remember one brother, because they say fish, you can eat fish. Fish is, you can eat fish. People that eat fish are pescatarians, and people who eggs and dairy and milk are vegetarians, and people who eat none of that is vegans. And we have all these terms for it. But it was this brother, who he obviously loved fish, and I remember him trying to convince me that I should be eating salmon because Dr. Sabi said so. And listen, I've never heard Dr. Sabi say that you need to have salmon. I have all respect for Dr. Sabi and all Sabiites. I have a lot of respect for Dr. Sabi and some of the things that he talked about, some of the things he's done, and I've read a lot of his material. I learned a lot about electric foods from Dr. Sabi, but I do not take like I'm. That's not a Sabiite where I'm whatever Dr. Sabi says. So I don't know if that's the case. But for me, he was trying to convince me because I am copper complected, copper tone. What's in salmon is what our people should eat, and this is something he truly believes. And again, general opinion is no proof of the truth, right? So that was his opinion about what salmon should and shouldn't do, and melanated people should eat salmon, but there's no proof of that. And I am a scientist. My background is science. That's what I do, and I never heard of such. But the bottom line is that that's so some people are hardcore on their flesh eating. They're not going to give it up. Their chicken, their turkey, whatever, and that's fine. What I'm saying to you is try to eat healthier. No matter what you're eating now, try to eat healthier. And that is the key because you're talking about generational. And I know that most of us, a lot of us that may come on this show, I don't know the age range, that may not be at childbearing age anymore, but you can set a pattern for your families by changing your way of eating for your children. So your sons and daughters say, I decided to change my diet. Will you do it with me? I decide to make a difference. Will you do it with me? This Thanksgiving, if you do the Thanksgiving and Christmas and Easter, all those crazy holidays, if you do those, say instead of having a ham this Thanksgiving, I don't know, we'll do turkey ham. I don't know if it's much better or whatever. One's pork, one's not. I'm just saying there's ways to make better choices, and you have to start somewhere. I'm not condoning flesh eating. I don't want nobody to say, oh, Prime Minister says it's all right to eat flesh, because I did not. And anybody that knows me know I do not eat flesh. That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if you have to eat it or want to eat it, or in your mindset you think that you have to have it, make a healthier choice is what I want to say. All right. And so we know that it affects your DNA. We know that it affects your gut microbiome. It affects your gut. So like, did you ever seen when people eat somewhere out, they eat at a restaurant, and obviously something was wrong with the food because next thing you know, they haven't pain in their stomach, they have to run to the bathroom, right? It goes right to your gut. So we want to have a healthier gut. And our stomach breaks down and supplies our body with food. That means we have to make sure that we're taking good care of our gut. Gut health is very, very important. And even if you never thought about it before, think about it now. You are what you eat. So if you eat in fatty foods, foods with a lot of salt, foods with a lot of sugar, then that is what you're going to present. If you're eating healthier foods, that is what your body is going to present. Lots of vegetables, lots of whole foods, whole grains, whole wheat, those things. You're going to represent that. I'm saying we have to keep those things in mind. Okay. All right. I trust today I got through to some people about trying to do things with your health. And I trust I did my granddaughter proud. Jediah, let me know if I did you proud today. You asked me to have this conversation because you're concerned about your age group eating unhealthy. And I have to say, at her age group, I am so surprised, and she'll be 20 in June. I am so surprised that people are still eating pork and pig feet and chitlins and all that. I'm just so surprised. But I guess I was very surprised too when I saw that people were still smoking or vaping. With all the information that's out there, people are still doing what they want to do. Okay. And our health, mind, body, spirit is affected by what we eat. All right. I want to take a few minutes to go over support our online schooling for Moist Children. That's online schooling MC. That's a cash app and it's a $. So support our online schooling. Also, you can purchase books at Circle 7 Publishing. I showed you the covers of two books I wanted to present today, which was The Truth About Your Health from the Inside Out. And I have all kinds of herbs and treatments in this particular book, and I talk about health, and I even get on a chicken because people think chicken is a healthier choice. Buy my book, it's not a healthier choice. And also my alkaline recipes for healthier living. And I want to just give you a quick background on that. What I found when I decided to go vegan is that no one could tell me what to eat. So I wasn't a flesh eater, but I needed to go vegan. I wanted to know how to eat. No one could tell me, oh, fix this, fix that, do this, do that. No one had an idea of how I could become vegan successfully. So I did my own research and wrote a book to get you started on, if you want to become a vegan, how you can become a vegan and meals to prepare. So I created a book for that. Okay, so I just wanted to share that. That's how that book came about. If you don't know and no one else is helping, you got to find a way to make it way, right? All right. Also, okay. All right, so the other one is not coming up for whatever reason. That's the one that has the Doors of Drew Ali, or that's on there. The other one is not coming up. We always have some kind of where it says show on stage. There we go. We have a few minutes, and I think sometimes I think it's this computer. This is a Mac, but because of the Mac, don't make it better than everything else. All right, so we have our donate button. To you people who have trouble using Cash App or anything else, you can donate to More Science with GSKS, theriabay.com. You can go right there and it will take all forms of payment. If you have trouble getting in, let me know. We can send you a link to donate. You can purchase the books that I just displayed at circle7publishing.com. And again, our humanitarian organization is Daughters of Drew Ali. And then again, our online schooling, which we need the most support with, is donate $online schooling MC. And if you donate through the other way, like if you go and donate through the Grand Shikazariya Bay, all you have to do when you're going to donate is put in if it's for the school, the Doors of Juali. If you have to use that one because you don't have Cash App in your area, just put to us what it's there for, and we make sure that the fiat goes to the cause that you desired it to because it's your donations. All right. It's always so good to be with you all in this shadow hour, and I trust that everyone did enjoy today because I so much enjoyed talking to you about food and health. And trust me, I did good. I got some information out there to you all without trying to be too scientific and talking language that you do not understand. I trust it was clear enough in concept for everyone to understand. Janaya, love you to life. I trust grandmother did good for you. All right. So until we meet again, it's every Thursday from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until we meet again, take care of yourselves and each other. You have been on an episode of Real Morse Talk Shadow Hour with me, Prime Minister National Grand Sheikh Zaria Bay. All right. Take care of yourselves and each other, Morse. Salam alaikum.